comments.
All right.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Randy Welsh, the Executive Director for the National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance, bringing you our February NWSA webinar series. We're pleased today to be here in Washington, D.C. That's why I'm all spiffed up. We're a number of us from the Partnership for the National Trail System, the Backcountry Horsemen, other national trails groups that you would commonly known as the National Scenic and Historic Trails Group, are here in DC for the annual Hike the Hill. It's a chance for trail stewardship groups to come and talk with legislators, representatives, agency folks to about the issues that are affecting their organizations or their trails. And we're using that opportunity to have a conversation with Katie Armstrong, who is the Wilderness and Wild and Scenic Rivers Director for the USDA Forest Service, located here in Washington, D.C. in their national headquarters. So Katie and I are sharing the same computer screen, so we're going to be bouncing back and forth just a little bit. But before I move the screen over, I want to thank Katie for her willingness to come and talk to us today about the wilderness program for the Forest Service, kind of what her dreams, aspirations are for it, what her experience in working has been, the issues that are currently affecting the agency, a number of topics that we'll try to explore over the course of the next 45 minutes. And then we'd like to save time for comments, questions from the audience as well. So with that, Katie and I had the opportunity to work together when I worked here in the Washington office. She was in legislative affairs at the time, has since done several stints as the chief of staff and other acting director assignments. And so we're really pleased to have Katie with us here today. So Katie, I'm going to go ahead and slide the camera over.
All right. Well, hey, hello, everyone. I'm really honored to be here with you today to have the opportunity to, share myself a little bit with you, but I also am hoping to hear from you. What are your concerns? What are you seeing out there? And have a good amount of time to have a bit of a dialogue. So with that.
So Katie, why don't you start off with introducing us to you? How were you introduced to wilderness? And what have been some of your favorite wilderness experiences?
Okay. Well, thanks, Randy. And that is a good question because it allows me to kind of air the fact that my path to being the director of Wilderness and Wild and Scenic Rivers is probably not a conventional one that previous directors may have taken. My background is actually in urban forestry, and I've been with the Forest Service now this is my 20th anniversary year with the agency. And during my time, I've had the opportunity to take on a number of different roles, whether it's in natural resources. When I first started with the agency, I was focused solely on the emerald ash borer, moved over into working in Region 9's Urban Connections program. And from there, came over to the Washington office. And I've been here in the Washington office since 2009 in a pretty wide variety of roles that I never would have imagined for myself. And that includes the role that I'm currently in. I would not have thought that this is the kind of opportunity that I might get. And I can't say how pleased and grateful I am to be in this director role. I feel a tremendous amount of responsibility, and I just can't thank my staff enough. The people that I work with are incredibly talented and knowledgeable and supportive, and they've really welcomed me knowing that I don't have a deep background in wilderness or wild and scenic rivers, but knowing that I am here to learn, I'm here to advocate, I'm here to honor the legacy, but also help lead us into the future in the immensely challenging environment that we find ourselves in. So
Well, Katie,
yeah.
so let's start with some good news.
Oh,
So, as you know, the National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance has been managing a challenge cost share with the Wilderness Program to
Mhm.
do wilderness stewardship performance activities on the national forest, and that the last 7 years that we've had a pretty good track record of accomplishing a lot of wilderness stewardship performance work, and we give all that credit to the wilderness stewardship groups around the country that have put in for those projects and have accomplished great things for wilderness. And I hear there's some potential good news ahead for us as we look into 2023. What might that be?
wow, Randy. You teed that up perfectly. It does look like we are going to be able to substantially increase our investment to NWSA for the WSP work. And in doing that, we're really excited because not only are we going to be able to increase the investment, we're also going to be able to make some program adjustments that will allow us to both increase the ceiling amount of some of the grants, but also have more of the smaller dollar amounts. So we're going to be able to hopefully reach groups that we haven't had the chance to work with yet. That allows us to get more work done in more places with new people. And we're also excited that it looks like we're going to be able to extend the project length from 1 year to 2 years. So that will allow folks to have a little bit more time for the planning and an understanding that the federal budget is not exactly predictable. So giving that extra time, I think, is going to be important for the work, for the folks who are trying to get the work done. And it also allows for the inevitable delays that we're seeing more and more due to fire on the landscape. So this is really exciting.
This is good news, Katie. I think that will really help a lot of wilderness stewardship organizations feel like they can contribute more and participate in our WSP program some more. So just to recap, the changes haven't been made on the website yet. They will happen shortly after I get back from Washington, D.C. But specifically, we'll be extending the timeframes for the completion of the projects to a 2-year window, a 2 field season window. And the dollar amount for individual projects will be increased. We think it could be increased as high as $50,000 per project. And finally, the last thing that would be of interest is that, as you've heard the Forest Service chief lately, they wanted to increase the level of partnership by decreasing the amount of partnership dollars that organizations have to have for their matches. And so we're taking advantage of that, and we will drop our requirement for cash and in-kind matches to 20% of the total project value. So those 3 things in combination should hopefully increase the number of partner groups that are going to want to take on some WSP work and be able to contribute to accomplishing that important work activity in wilderness. That these are the wilderness stewardship performance elements that are so essential to seeing that our wilderness areas are managed to stewardship levels. So we're real excited about that. Thank you so much, Katie. You've already exceeded all of our expectations right here, right off the bat. So that's just wonderful news. And so we will get that word out and start sharing that with all our partners. And we're hopeful that we'll be able to show some more good work done on the WSP front.
And I would just like to share that we recognize that with the Forest Service budget modernization that we went through a little while back, that was impacting the way some of the dollars were reaching the ground and the amount of work that was getting done. And we communicated that to our Deputy Chief Chris French, and this is really him acknowledging that and investing in this work because it's very important.
All right. Well, I hope everybody out in our audience is taking notes to this effect. And again, check our website next week. We'll have all the updated information there. And it will hopefully increase the number of WSP projects that are submitted, because we'll have, I think, the funding to be able to accommodate that increase. So Katie, let's dive into some more other topics then.
Sure.
So, you know, what are the current priorities that you're working with in wilderness, wild and scenic rivers?
Well, there are many. You know, right now we're really looking at establishing baseline assessments for all the wilderness areas. We certainly want to see an increased and steady rise in our wilderness stewardship performance scores. And I think that this increased investment will help us move in that direction. We're also really hoping to, you know, kind of in this ramp up period where we get the baselines set up to get into that rhythm of the 5-year cycle. So ramp up and then get a little bit more steady on that. We're also really looking to modernize our databases, both in wilderness and wild and scenic rivers. And I'll say, you know, more broadly speaking, it's a high priority for me for the wilderness program to be at the table when the big decisions are being made. And, you know, I'm sure you all have heard our chief's main priority right now is wildfire risk reduction, the wildfire crisis. And we, as a wilderness community, have a role to play in that. And I want to make sure that we are a part of those conversations, a part of those decisions, and as much as possible, as appropriate, a part of the solution. So that's a big priority for me. On a personal level, coming into this role, it's just been, you know, I hate to use the cliche, but drinking from a fire hose. It's the time has gone by so quickly, and I really appreciate all of the help that I've gotten in learning, but I still have a long way to go. And I know that it's really the best way to learn things is to get out and to meet people and to see the work firsthand, to visit. And you know, we're finally opening up our travel, and I think that that's going to give me the opportunity to meet many of you face to face and build those relationships and get to know each other better and the work that you're doing. So that's a big priority for me.
Yeah, COVID has restricted the ability for federal employees to travel quite frequently here in the last several years. Have you still managed to squeak any time out in wilderness in the last year and a half?
Well, I did. I went up to, I think it's Horseshoe Bay Wilderness in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Wow, great.
And yeah, and I went in the fall, and it just so happened to be just an incredible, I don't know if bloom is the right word, of fungus, mushrooms everywhere, in more than I've ever seen in my life. And if anybody wants to see, I took an embarrassing number of mushroom pictures while I was there. And it was lovely. And it was not long after I had been in this role, and it just filled me with such pride and the sense of responsibility, and to know that that's just like the tiniest sliver of the beauty that the system has under our care.
All right. Well, so you've been here in Washington DC, and one of the things that the Forest Service does is participate with the Wilderness Policy Council,
Mhm.
which is your co-parts among
Yep,
the 4 land
yep.
management agencies. So would you care to give us a description of the topics that you're working on with the Policy Council,
Mhm.
things that are affecting the National Wilderness Preservation System as a whole, and then segue into particular issues that the Forest Service might be having hot topic issues with right now?
Yeah, and I'll say that there has been a pretty decent turnover in the membership of the Policy Council. So I think some of the work that we've been engaged in is setting up our relationships with each other and getting to know each other and the work. I would say that front and center for the Policy Council right now is a focus on the Carhart Center. As I think many of you know, the former director, Katie Bliss, moved on, and we have an acting director. And he's just been doing a fantastic job, but the Policy Council is working to check out where we're at with the Carhart governance, what we are looking for in the next director, and how to use this as an opportunity to do some strategic planning to, get the Carhart Center firing on all cylinders, fully staffed, and looking at how to provide those educational resources into the future, because their work is so important, and I think that there's a ton of potential there. So the Policy Council is very, very focused on that.
Okay, what kind of hot topic issues is the Forest Service working on right now?
Well, I would say the hottest topic is forest wildfire. And I think that one of the areas of intense interest, and I think that you all are probably hearing this too, is the use of prescribed burning in wilderness areas and how that can be better understood as a tool where appropriate. Of course, it's not always appropriate, but in areas where fire has been excluded for many years, it is a natural part of the ecosystem, and really talking about what tools do we have, how to use them appropriately. That's a big one.
Okay. Are there any particular projects being proposed for prescribed fire?
Well, I can't speak on the project level, but I will say that our Deputy Chief, Chris French, would like to set up what he's calling a field learning experience, where we're gonna pull together some folks, ground level. We're working with people from fire and aviation management. We're looking at our priority landscape areas, and we want to really look at what's going on out there. What can we learn? What can we pull together for best practices to share more widely? Because just we hear that people don't see it as a viable tool. I think it's too complicated, or they're just not allowed to do it at all. And we know that's not necessarily the case. So when we look at the importance and the richness of the ecosystems in wilderness and the threat that they're under of complete loss or landscape conversion from fire, we really want to do what we can to protect them from that.
Okay. That makes sense for the conversation that we had with Chris a little earlier this morning.
Yeah.
So with the agency has been spending a lot of time working on wilderness character monitoring lately. Could you give us an update on the status of wilderness character monitoring around the Forest Service?
Yes, I can. All right. So, and I have to give many thanks to Christina Boston for providing me with the latest numbers on this. She has let me know that as of today, our tracking indicates that of our 448 wilderness areas, we've completed and signed 189 wilderness character baseline assessments, and another 44 have completed baseline assessments that are awaiting signature, with another 35 that are in progress. And on top of that, we anticipate more getting started later this year. So encouraging numbers.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So coming up in a couple of years, we have a celebration, a milestone, the 60th anniversary of the Wilderness Act coming up in 2024. What would the agency like to see happen with that event?
Well, I think that it is a magnificent opportunity to shine the spotlight on the National Wilderness Preservation System, the incredible amount of work that has been done over the last 60 years. But it's also an opportunity for us together as a community to talk about what have we learned over the last 60 years. What's changed ecologically and socially over the last 60 years. And if we had to rewrite the Wilderness Act today, what would it look like? Would it be the same? What would we change? I think we can use it as an opportunity to look forward to the next 60 years or beyond. I think it's a great opportunity for celebration, reflection, and what our hopes for the future are.
All right, well, NWSA is exploring options right now for an event associated with the 60th anniversary. It will be NWSA's turn to host the National Wilderness Workshop. So I just preface that for our audience to be looking ahead in the next few months as those plans gel. We'll decide when and where we would host a celebration event of that sort. For those that are listening, you probably heard of another event that's being planned, the 100th anniversary of the Gila Wilderness, which is also in 2024. And there's a whole series of events planned in the Silver City, New Mexico area that will celebrate that unique character of that country and the specialness of being the first area administratively designated by the Forest Service to be a wilderness area. So we were hoping to do some things in conjunction, but we'll have to see how those plans gel in the next months. But looking forward to doing an appropriate celebration for both events.
Yeah, and I think that another piece that would be really important that we can work together on is especially it's on the mind this week being Hike the Hill, and using the 60th anniversary as an opportunity to kickstart a wilderness on the hill. Those conversations that our partners can have in a way that folks from federal agencies can't have, can really produce fruit. And I think that is the 60th anniversary is a great tie-in to get something like that set up, and then to keep it going annually.
Well, we hope we'll be able to do something like that.
Yeah.
So speaking of the Hill, just are there any wilderness with the new Congress in town? Are there any wilderness bills that have been submitted already? Are you guys working on any wilderness designation legislation? Has that come up to the forefront yet?
Not that I'm aware of.
Very early in the Congress, but
Yeah. I haven't seen anything yet, but we'll have our antennae up.
were there any that came close last Congress that might make it back again this year? Okay.
Yeah. So if any of you all are wondering, I'm also sitting next to Peter Molly.
Yeah, Peter Molly.
Hello.
Good.
Hi, folks.
Peter is the National Wilderness Program leader for the Forest Service here in Washington, DC.
Yes. So thank you, Peter, for
Sure.
me when I occasionally glance over at you.
Happy to be glad over it.
Well, NWSA, of course, is a spokesperson for the wilderness stewardship community. So just looking out ahead, are there any particular issues or topics that you could see affecting the wilderness stewardship community? I know the whole idea about reducing the partnership contribution level is going to come up in many locations. And that's an exciting change that all partner groups can work on at their local areas if they have local agreements. Are there any other substantive issues like that or changes that you see coming down the road that will help stewardship groups be able to work better with the Forest Service?
I'm not immediately aware of any, but I do want to really highlight what you just mentioned.
Maybe the chief's statements from yesterday.
Yeah, the chief's direction that went out last year about relaxing the match requirements, recognizing that, hey, we are not required to ask for certain levels of match by law. It was our own internal policy, and it was excluding a lot of smaller groups, a lot of partners that are smaller or in underserved communities. And so he changed it. And I think that is really going to have a long-term impact on increasing the number and the variety of partners that we're able to engage with. One other piece that I would like to mention, some of you have probably heard about the White House initiative Justice 40, where there have been a certain segment of federal programs that have been, I think they call them covered programs, where 40% of the resources of those programs are meant to go to underserved communities. So our program was not designated a covered program, but that doesn't mean that we cannot strive to meet some of those goals. It means that we get to do it because it's the right thing to do, not because we have to do it. And there's tremendous potential there to broaden our reach, and the reduction of the match requirements and the increased investment, I think, is really going to give a lot of energy behind those efforts.
So the Forest Service is also in the mode of increasing its staffing and workforce. That's been an issue that's come up a number of times. How might that affect the wilderness program?
Yeah, thanks, Randy. The Forest Service has been after many long years of hemorrhaging sort of resource-based staff and building up the fire community. We're finally at a point after the fire funding fix and some significant investments to start staffing up again in some of these critical positions that for so many years had been depleted. So we're seeing that now. We've had some large hiring events. I think we just embarked on hiring 1,000 rec employees. Many of them would be engaged in some of this wilderness work. It's a work in progress, and we recognize that hiring doesn't always equal retention. So that's something that we're really trying to focus on and to emphasize that this isn't a one-off. We're going to keep trying to have these larger hiring events, because we are losing folks to retirement, attrition, and even when we hire large numbers, we lose some too. So we're going to keep at it and really trying to restore our ranks to a point where we can be providing consistent service, have more consistent relationships with partners. We've heard for years that's really tough on folks when you want to get a project done and there's no district ranger or you had a great relationship and they move on, and there'll always be some element of that, but I think that in the coming years, we're gonna be able to shore up in a way that we haven't seen in a long time.
Are there any other suggestions you'd have for wilderness stewardship groups and how they can help work with the Forest Service or work with their local unit a little better?
Sure. I mean, I think that it's all about the personal relationships and reaching out and not getting discouraged if you run into someone who is overwhelmed and it feels like they just don't have time for you. I would say keep asking around. If you know your regional program manager, that might be a good place to shoot them a line. We've got just a fantastic group of regional program managers who care very much about this work, and I'm sure would be willing to help build a connection or help you make an entree when there's an issue like that.
Okay, great. So the Forest Service, well, in federal government, the last couple of years, there's been a big infusion of money coming in through the infrastructure bill, the Great America Outdoors Act. Has the wilderness program been able to see any of that increase in funding come through? I know some of it's hit trails and that's hopefully benefiting wilderness. Has the wilderness program benefited any other way?
I think that we've been staying pretty steady on the funding level. One change that we are seeing though is that we've gotten, kind of the green light if we need to staff up here in the Washington office. We have the ability to do that in a way that we wouldn't have in the past. And one of the positions that we're looking at is a wilderness wildfire ecologist, which I think would be extremely helpful for us as we're moving into some of these big agency-wide priorities and making sure that we've got expertise and science that helps us be part of the solution.
All right, yeah, one of the research scientists at the Leopold Center had been affected that way.
Yeah, and Leopold is just doing amazing work. And actually, you know what? But they just published, you guys can see this beautiful publication, A Perpetual Flow of Benefits, Wilderness Economic Values in an Evolving Multicultural Society. So I believe that this is available online now. So if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to check it out.
All right. Well, Katie, before we break for some questions, would you care to just talk about what's your vision for the next 3 to 5 years in the wilderness program?
Yeah, well, I think that we have a really strong staff who's filled with energy. I see us growing. I know that there's been some questions in the past about internally in the Forest Service, how we're organized. Obviously I am here, so there is still a director of wilderness and wild and scenic rivers of the Forest Service, and wanted to assure you all that still have a seat at the table and a strong voice. And you could even say it's an outsized voice, because some of the other directorate areas are so much larger, but we're right there. I see us strengthening internally, building more relationships, I think is going to be really key for me to strengthen the reach, the knowledge, the impact. I don't know that I have like a vision statement right now, but I feel very optimistic about where we are, what our opportunities are, and that we've got the right partners, more partners to come, and the right folks that are working on it, and we all care very deeply about it. And I think that's what gives us the energy to succeed.
Great. Well, let me just move this over just a little bit so we can look at the questions that might have come in. So please, let's go ahead and use this opportunity. If there are any questions that you would like to ask Katie, this is an outstanding opportunity right now to ask the Director of Wilderness and Wild and Scenic Rivers any questions you might have about the Forest Service Wilderness Program. So we'll queue those up. So just go ahead and write those into the chat, and we will start getting those going.
Yeah, and if I could say, Randy, too, if it doesn't have to be questions, if there are things that you're seeing out there that would be helpful for us to know about, please take this opportunity to share that. You know, we all have different experiences, different views, different challenges. So if there's something that, you know, we've got a blind spot, please tell us. And if it's something that you might be more comfortable reaching out offline, please do. Would love to hear from you in any format.
Yeah, so not really a question, but a comment about one of the hiring events. Are there any other future hiring events planned?
Yeah, I don't have the specifics on the dates and the numbers, but I'll say that this our batch hiring events, we did it for engineering, the 301 series, the recreation, and it was really, at least for this group of folks in the Washington office, our first time trying something like this. And we have a lot of lessons learned. It did not necessarily go smoothly in all areas. And we recognize that and know that there are many improvements to make. So as we continue to go forward and learn, and hopefully people will be getting fewer big fat goose eggs when they are looking for positions.
Okay. We do have a question about employee housing, and having housing for wilderness rangers has always been a big issue, seasonal housing. Is the agency trying to address that in any way?
Yes, very much. And I'll say that our WAG, WIMPS, and TAG folks all are working on that. We had a meeting just, and I'm sorry if so that's the Wilderness Advisory Group, the Trails Advisory Group, the Wilderness Information Stewardship Management Team. They all have task groups that are working on that very issue. We had a meeting just last Friday with a group from our Recreation and Heritage, who are also looking at the problem, as well as a representative from engineering, who's also tackling the problem. So we are working to combine forces, see where our efforts can overlap, strengthen each other. And, you know, some of these larger economic issues are a bit out of our control, but identifying what is under our control, what can we change? Where are people finding innovative solutions and sharing those? And, you know, this is an issue that is recognized, you know, all the way up at the department level. The department also has a group working on affordable employee housing that has memberships from our Forest Service leadership participating, and we're going to be setting up, you know, regular communication between sort of the working group and the group that's focused more at the policy level. So this is very much on the radar, and we've got a lot of really good people who are working on it.
All right. Katie, you've got a question here about recommended wilderness areas, and I know that the direction for recommended wilderness areas was redone last, I believe, with the planning rule in about 2010, 2012, somewhere in there. Are there any changes? Are there any planned changes for how the recommended wilderness direction is being implemented as forests go into forest planning?
Gonna have to glance over at Peter here.
Nothing that I've heard in terms of how those are managed. There's a whole new effort about how to handle the role of wilderness inventory in the planning process, but not recommended wilderness per se.
Okay. All right, yeah, that may be a little more detailed question than we can answer right here, but let's see. Okay,
You know,
yeah.
was that MRAF question?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
there
not
it
sure
is.
what MRAF is.
MRAF is the minimum requirements analysis
Oh,
framework.
that's the new description for it, okay. MMR is changing to MRFA or MRAF,
Yeah.
okay. Well, do you want to talk about that?
Sure,
Okay.
sure. So this spring, the four agencies that manage wilderness, they've been working for about 3 years now to do an update to the MRDG. And the revised product, of course, is the minimum requirements analysis framework. And they were able to work through it and developed several significant improvements that are going to make it more intuitive, easier to navigate, and I understand significantly shorter.
Yes.
So I think it's going to be really helpful for folks. And the intent is that this new version is going to make it easier for the practitioner to determine more effectively and efficiently, but without making any sacrifices to the minimum requirements analysis. So that is the culmination of a lot of hard work. And one piece that I understand that is going to be added encourages a little more tribal interaction, which I think is a really positive and perhaps you could say overdue addition to that process.
And when will it be rolled out or go live?
So spring.
Okay, sometime this spring.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Have another designation question here and talking
Okay.
about eastern wilderness areas associated with designations in the Farm Bill through the Agriculture Committee. I know some of the details there might be a little in the weeds for us right now, but any thoughts on wilderness designations coming through a non-standard route such as the Farm Bill? Have you guys had to deal with that in the recent past?
You know, it's a good question. I am not familiar with if there have been wilderness designations in the Farm Bill in the past. I think it will depend largely on how clean they want to keep the Farm Bill. If there are opportunities to get some designations, whether it be wilderness or adjustments to boundaries, these sorts of things, depending on the mood of the committees that are working on it, there could be. Yeah, it depends. You know, Congress does what Congress wants to do, and but if there are particular designations or boundary adjustments that we would want to see get attached to something like that, then I would say using your relationships with local staffers or keeping us informed, the sooner the better to get those conversations going.
Yeah, traditionally wilderness designations have been either standalone bills or they've been packaged into an end of the year omnibus bill.
Lands packages.
So those have been traditional ways of doing it. So yeah, as times change, new methodologies for getting designations might make sense. So.
Yeah, and the some of these conversations we can't have
not controlled by the agency, are they? So
as us,
it's working with the congressional representative.
Well, yeah, and the partner groups can advocate in a different way than we can, and I would encourage you to if you've got something to bring forward, it doesn't hurt to suggest the Farm Bill, and if that's a no-go, then inquire, well, if not that, then what would you suggest?
All right. Let's see. Are there any other questions? Let's see. We're just going to check here for a second. Address that?
Yeah, I see, it looks like Kip popped a question in the meeting chat about the grade levels. That he or she, sorry, is seeing, flown when it comes to the wilderness management position, seeing as 6 or 7. And, that is another area that we have been looking at. It speaks to, the affordable housing issue. If you're hiring in at a 6, it's a lot more difficult to afford housing than if you're hiring in at a lot higher grade. So yeah, I think that that is definitely something that we are interested in looking at.
All right, another Andrea, happy to have you on board in the Forest Service.
Welcome.
Andrea. Yeah, welcome. Let's see. Let's check our chat here and oh yeah, difficult time trying to break into housing in California. I know that I think, isn't the agency planning to look at employee housing as part of their next round of infrastructure? Didn't I see something to that effect?
Well, I think that there are some pretty stringent OMB restrictions on the federal government building housing, unfortunately. So some things we're certainly looking at where there might be a gray area, where we might be able to find solutions through partner agreements. Because the problem has to be addressed. It has to be, I don't know if a full solution, but we need to make it better. So we're looking at all possible ways to do that. In terms of the kinks of the hiring, yeah, it was a bumpy ride. But you know, when the chief kicked off the process, he basically said, "This is the first time we're doing it. We know we're going to make mistakes, but we're going to learn from them." So that's kind of the open-minded. You know, we're not pretending like it went perfect, but we're teasing out the ways that we can do it better in the future.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Katie. Couple more questions just came in. All right, question about prescribed fire in wilderness. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that? Because I think Chris mentioned that in a meeting, that Chris French, the deputy chief of the Forest Service, mentioned that in a meeting this morning of trying to take care of wildfire events and do more preparedness by considering prescribed fire in wilderness. So how is that being looked at here in the agency right now, and then within the wilderness program?
Yeah, sure. And I'll say too that there was a recent workshop that was hosted. Was it by the University of
Western Colorado University.
Western Colorado University to sort of begin the discussion. Unfortunately, that meeting conflicted with a couple other meetings, and a number of us who would have loved to have been there weren't able to attend. But right now, we just hear a lot about folks in the field who think that it is prescribed fire is not a tool available under any circumstances in wilderness areas. And we know that that's not necessarily the case. So trying to figure out how and when it may be used appropriately and safely, in particular in areas where fire is a part of the ecosystem and it's been excluded for years. And it's a complex issue, and it's one that I think that we need to really start thinking about and talking about. We certainly don't have an approach that we've got that we plan on pushing forward. We want to have the conversations. We want to learn. We want to hear where it's working, what the obstacles are. Because, you know, quite frankly, when we're looking at the changes on the landscape, the level of destruction from these catastrophic fires we can't afford to ignore that as a tool in our toolbox.
All right, well, Katie, we're coming up on the top of the hour. We've kind of explored all the questions.
Mhm.
Do you have any closing comments for our audience?
Well, I guess I would just close with a thank you. A thank you for spending this time together, and share that like I said at the top, I very much look forward to getting to know you all better and hear about what great things you're doing, and hopefully see some of it firsthand. I am extremely grateful to be in this position, and I plan to be in this position for quite some time. So looking forward to that, and just a huge thank you to all of you and the work that you do. And I think that's it. Thanks, everybody.
All right, Katie. No, we want to thank you so much for that. We appreciate that. So I think you can reach Katie at Catherine.Armstrong@usd.gov.
It's Catherine.E.Armstrong@USDA.gov.
Yeah, Catherine.E.Armstrong@USDA.gov. All right, well, we want to thank you, Katie, for joining us here today and sharing your thoughts about the wilderness program for the Forest Service. It's been instructive and enlightening, and we definitely appreciate the good news also about our WSP program going into 2023. So speaking of that, that will be the subject of our next webinar in March, on the second Tuesday of the month. I believe that is going to be March 14th. We'll focus in on what these changes mean for the WSP program and how groups can take advantage of the opportunity to maybe receive more money for WSP performance activities, and how to best fill out and complete the application for that funding proposal. Those funding programs, both the Trail Partner program and the WSP funding program, are both active right now, soliciting projects through April 15th. So there's still plenty of time to work with your local Forest Service Ranger District to come up with project proposals for that funding. We'll have more details on our website here in the next week. And then, of course, come back and talk with us on our March webinar, where we'll dive deep into the details and tell you how to be very competitive. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here with us. Thanks again, Katie and Peter. And we will sign off for now and see everybody next month.